Okay, so on to part two. Uh, can you explain the history and issues surrounding CRT and politics? Okay, until a year ago, none of you had heard of CRT. Um, it's critical race theory is what that is. So, critical race theory is a term in law school that talks about systems that are in place in the government, in society, that have essentially a racist heritage. So it can be things like, redlining. So there were laws codified by local governments that said anything inside of this red line you cannot get a mortgage for. And generally, that was minority neighborhoods. So people in those neighborhoods could not go to the bank, take out a mortgage, and buy a house, take out a mortgage, make improvements to their property, do things like that. Everything had to be done with cash. The banks wouldn't be involved, and it basically made it so that poor people could not buy the homes in their neighborhood, accumulate wealth and value in that real estate, and then pass it on to their scions, their children. And if you can't accumulate wealth via real estate, especially in the United States of America, you have no generational wealth to pass on whatsoever. You will keep people impoverished. And that's what happened in the ghettos in America, was people were systematically impoverished by this redlining system. Highways got bore right through those poor neighborhoods, so the rich neighborhoods didn't have to deal with the traffic and the pollutants off of it and the noise. And they didn't have to lose their homes to eminent domain. We can see it in legacy laws like housing developments and HOAs for all over the country had no Jews allowed, no Irish, no black people, no Orientals, really racist language and things like that. Clubs, a lot of clubs were formed and grew in power and significance when laws overturning Jim Crow era laws happened. So if you couldn't have a restaurant or a park be like a whites only restaurant, then you make a private club, an Elks Lodge, Masons, things like that, where you could be like, oh, it's a private club, it's for us. You guys aren't allowed. Golf clubs, country clubs, things like that, also had that. So anyway, there's a legacy of these racist laws and rulings, and people who are able to exploit the power that those laws make, and so CRT was sort of a way of explaining the systemic nature of these legacy laws and how society operates today and the effects they have on people today and where the origins of those laws came from, so that people can understand all of that. Now, certain political activists, I'll say this, they manipulated the fact behind this is a grad school course in theory that you work on, and tried to explain that basically teaching any history whatsoever about America's past was wrong. That we shouldn't be teaching fifth graders about the Civil War and about how white people own black people, because that'll make the fifth graders feel really bad about themselves. No, you can teach fifth graders about the Civil War and about how white people own black people. That's because that's how it happened. They're not going to feel bad about themselves. They're going to be horrified by that fact. They're going to go, oh my gosh, what a horrible thing to do. We should probably never do that ever again. But the people who are saying you can't teach these fifth graders CRT, kids aren't learning CRT. They're just learning history, man. You know, the fact that you don't want the kids to learn about history is, in effect, pointing out why CRT needs to be taught at the collegiate level to university and law students, right? If you're going to make a law making it illegal to teach about the Civil War because you don't like the fact that it makes racists look like pieces of crap, then guess what? When they get to college, they're going to learn about critical race theory and about how a bunch of racists systemically created a system that doesn't teach you about your actual history because they don't like it when you point out that racists are bad. Critical race theory is criticizing racism. That's what it is. And if you don't like criticizing racism, then you're probably benefiting from racism, would be my guess. And you don't want the system to change or other people's lives get better. Um, like the folks that are like, oh, they're woke. There's a bunch of woke bullshit. Well, what does woke even mean? Yeah, ask somebody what does woke mean if they're using it in a negative context, and they won't be able to tell you because they know if they do tell you, it's going to mean having empathy. That's what it means. Like understanding that other human beings need to be treated with dignity and respect and humanity that we all deserve. And if you're like, oh, it's a bunch of woke bullshit, that's because someone else is treating somebody with dignity and humanity. You know, I believe that people who are transgendered should have rights and be treated humanely and be allowed to have jobs and lives and live their own path. And so I'm like, oh, it's a bunch of woke bullshit. Yeah, because I have empathy for what they're going through. That they are humans, should be treated humanely. So, a lot of people who are against like things like CRT, they're the ones who like talk about the war of northern aggression. If it wasn't for the war of northern aggression, dude, the South shot first. Ever heard of Fort Sumter? Like, they're who attacked. It wasn't the war of northern aggression; it was the war of southern aggression. They're the dudes who attacked. So they want to just linguistically manipulate things. There's like Orwellian terminology to take you away from what it actually means, and that is the basis between the scare and all these people like, I don't want CRT taught in my public school here in Texas or whatever, and they don't even know what it is. They don't realize that it's not even being taught to their kids, but their actions is proving why it needs to be taught in college to lawyers or potential lawyers, and that's it. So there you go, a little mini rant for all of you right off the bat.